Rosco McQueen, Firefighter Extreme is a 3D action platformer with a strange personality and solid design principles. First things first, about that personality. Rosco McQueen takes a stab at some distinctly 90s humor that feels both goofy and edgy. One of the level types is a highly stereotypical Chinese laundromat, you're rescuing underpaid hippie janitors in another one, and the whole game just has this really weird layer of snark and cultural parody caked atop it. Your floating robot companion makes fun of the size of your fire axe too, and when Rosco picks up water tanks, he exclaims, "Ah, God's precious water." I'm fairly certain none of this is meant to be taken seriously, especially since any civilians you fail to rescue will literally explode into pieces, and hey, some attitude is better than none. Also, this isn't related to the aforementioned tone of the game, but Rosco's death scream is blood-curdling. What were we talking about? The gameplay, I think. Probably the gameplay. So, Rosco McQueen is a level-based 3D platformer. Your objective is to put out all the fires in the level, destroy all the robots, and optionally rescue every hostage. It's an old-school game with power-ups and secrets and deaths that send you back to the level's entrance. There are two primary pillars to the gameplay here: resource management and exploration. Rosco can equip throwing axes to take out tougher enemies from a distance, water tanks to ensure he never runs out of H2O, which eventually make his spray superpowered and rainbow-colored if he nabs enough, super axes which act as keys to open certain doors, extinguishers, water bombs. There's a lot. But in order to use all those nifty items, you first have to find them, and finding them is where the real gameplay hides. If you're judicious with your resources, particularly those super axes and water tanks, and keen of eye, you'll be able to locate many a stockpile of optional goodies. Ideally, you'll be exploring levels thoroughly by checking every door, only using as much water as you need, thinking twice about every item or weapon you use, and saving them for the moments where you're sure to get something big in return. If you play your cards right, you'll end up with an excess of 15 water tanks and be spraying rainbow water all over the place. That is to say, when you're doing well in this game, you're doing really well. Just be careful not to actually die. Though it's unlikely when you're all souped up with the items you've hoarded, it can happen, especially while platforming. Platforming is the great equalizer, and if you plummet into a pit, you lose everything you've been meticulously collecting. It hits extra hard when you realize that items do carry over between levels. Metagame aside, the actual firefighting and platforming isn't bad either. Nearly every fire is set by robot enemies, and you can often, but not always, kill them before they start fires to begin with, if you're good enough at blocking their path. When a flame does get roaring though, it's invested in staying lit. If you're not fast enough in putting it out, it'll reignite or spread to other nearby objects. Thankfully, your hose has a generous auto-aim, so it's just about pointing Rosco in the proper direction most of the time. It's certainly not a terrible mechanic, but it's much bolstered by the exploration-focused level design and high-stakes platforming. You do a lot more in this game than just douse embers. Overall, Rosco McQueen certainly seems like a worthwhile game. It's got a compelling gameplay loop, and I just find it pleasant to engage with. It's always neat to find new, creative 3D platformers.